Hi, this is David Prantl from JouleX, together with our CTO, René. And we would like to give you an overview of the new features of JouleX Energy Manager 4.0. René is joining me from our office in Kassel. Hi, René.
Hey, David. Great to have you for today's meeting. So, as you mentioned, 4.0 is a milestone release for JouleX. We have made tremendous changes in architecture and deployment scenarios. We introduced multi-tenant capabilities, which allow you to really create enterprise, create hierarchies for working in different groups and different organizations, provide different access rights, but also deploy JouleX as a software as a service type solution. And today's WebEx will be around the architecture, how you structure information, and also some nice features around visualization and dashboard. So, David, I think we get started.
Thanks, René. So the most important feature is really multi-tenancy in this release. And as you can see, the overall dashboard is a little sleeker, but looks pretty similar. So the big new plus is the plus you see on the upper left side of the screen. You see at the moment there's JouleX, and you have a little arrow pointing to the right, and I can actually open this up, and you'll see kind of folder structure, as you know from example Windows Explorer. And folder is exactly what we call these little individual elements. And the folders is what allows us to segregate, partition, and structure the new enterprise-wide multi-tenant capable JouleX deployments. So each folder contains its own set of access rights if you want, and at the end of the day you can structure your devices into individual folders, allowing you to give a view onto those devices only for this folder. Now, it doesn't stop there, because obviously devices is not the only thing you'll have in a big deployment. You'll also have several of what we call gem controllers. In Gem 3.0, you had to install several gems to be able to handle really large numbers of devices, and all data was reported back to a central reporting server. However, you still needed to configure these gems individually. Now with Gem 4.0, we have the concept of a so-called gem controller, which is really just a satellite that does device data collection and executes the policy. And now what happens in a large deployment is that you have these controllers and you assign them to individual folders. So in our case, I have a folder for our headquarters in Atlanta, I have a folder for our headquarters in Kassel, and I have one gem controller that I assign there to manage local data collection. So in this case, I'll show you briefly. I have one gem controller that's assigned to both folders because the amount of devices doesn't vary for multiple controller installation. In big deployments, you will have multiple controllers, which you then assign to individual folders. And now below those folders, you can define as many substructures as you want, i.e. individual folders, which will also allow you to place devices in those individual folders. So for instance, I'm now on the Kassel folder, and you see that I have a total of 1,287 devices. And as I drill down further into, for example, the data central, we see the number of total devices drops to 2,500. And now I'm only seeing the data center devices, which is also verifiable if you look at the models I have in this range, which is mostly networking equipment and servers. If I switch over to the office view, you'll see that I suddenly have all these monitors and workplace devices, which again is our real-life office equipment in Kassel. Now, on top of these folders, one thing is that I can partition devices, as you've just seen. The other thing is that I can really now define a policy on this folder, i.e. I can define a user that has access rights to only this folder, and he can then start creating policies in this folder, which will only be applied to devices in this folder and below. He can still execute policies which were inherited from an upper level folder, e.e. for example, if an administrator defined a global policy in the JouleX folder in this example. By default, if I only write this one local policy in my R&D office folder, this global policy will not be executed. But there's a hook to make this possible, which is the execute parent policy, which I have made in this folder to make sure that everything else is still executed while my special local policy is executed only on the devices I desire. Same thing applies to protected devices and location mappings. By default, your folder will inherit the global settings settings from folders higher up in the hierarchy for these settings. However, if you define something here, it will override the pre-existing data. Now, to assign these access rights in user management, you still have the local user authentication, you have Active Directory authentication, and we added LDAP authentication. You do not have 5 access levels anymore, but you have the ability to granularly define the access rights to the individual elements inside GEM based on a folder structure. Or you also have the global access rights, which are the only rights that are not really multi-tenant capable. For instance, the ability to change and edit users or to change global i.e. GEM Central configurations. Then when you define the actual access control, what you do is you add access rights for a certain user to a certain folder with a certain role, i.e. I could say that user David gets read-write access to Office and to nothing else. And what that means that if I look at my devices, I'll see only the Office devices and nothing else, and only be able to execute the actions there for this particular set of permissions that I was granted for this folder. So this really allows me to structure and partition enterprise-wide deployment of GEM and enables multi-tenant scalability for our product. Another important enhancement for us is the ability to generically visualize data. So we added the ability to, for instance, create a floor plan, which we did for the reference lab in San Jose of Cisco's EnergyWise testing. And what we did here is that we basically took the floor map and created the power sum for the individual EnergyWise domains. So you can see these power fields, look for a certain EnergyWise domain inside the devices, and then sum the power usage for those devices inside that lab to give you 11 kilowatts at that moment for that EV lab EnergyWise domain. And on top of that, visualization and multi-tenancy, what we did is we added several new asset connectors, one of the most important ones being around SNMP automatic network discovery. So now our solution is able to automatically go out to the network, collect via SNMP information from network switches, which also include data about locally discovered devices with LLDP or CDP. So this allows you to generically add PoE devices to our database, even if they do not directly support EnergyWise. The same is possible for out-of-band network discovery. This means anything that has out-of-band management capabilities like CIMC, HP-ILO, IPMI, and so on. And we also support SSH and Windows Network Discovery, which basically allows you to automatically pull on those devices if you do not happen to have Active Directory present. Amongst those are several new enhancements in the SDK and in the support for Windows devices. Storage devices are now supported as well with EMC and NetApp, to name the most important companies, with a native and direct power measurement of data. So I think that was a very brief overview of the most important features of JouleX Energy Manager 4.0, with a comprehensive list obviously being available in the release note. So I hope you enjoyed this brief overview. René, is there anything you want to add?
Well, just what you mentioned, this is really a brief overview. There's thousands of new features and functionalities, and I think we will go into details on each specific topic in the next time to give you more details about certain parts of the software. But I think to get a first taste of it, that was a great demo.
And thanks a lot for your attention, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this, and please feel free to reach out to us for anything else we could help with. Thank you.